I am ever entertained by some of the comments which my posts arouse, and I am always prepared to backtrack if I think I've said something ridiculous. Steve C., who is always very good with comments and pulls me up regularly, says the idea that someone can be a spy is absurd. More words of wisdom from Tim, and then goes on to mock that idea. Well, I don't think I said it was absurd that someone can be a spy. I think it's perfectly reasonable that somebody can be a spy. I just think it's absurd that somebody would take a job to go to Moscow as the global situation becomes so tense and would be so foolish as to get mistaken for a spy. I cannot imagine that a spy service would want to have a journalist as a spy at this particular moment. It makes no sense because it's too obvious, frankly, and too exposed. There are better options. Evan is the son of emigres anyway. His parents were Soviet Russians who went to settle, I think, in the USA. I think it's more likely that Evan is the new Brittany Griner. She was a basketball player, wasn't she? And in the wrong place at the wrong time and a hostage to the war. I think she was traded for the Merchant of Death, Victor Bout. And now Evan is in Leforto prison. And I think that isn't a subject for comic put-downs at all, Steve. That's a subject for great concern. He is the first Westerner detained there since the fall of the Soviet Empire. And he's not the only Westerner, incidentally, who has been detained as a spy. I think who's also a journalist, but I will get to the Chechen situation in a later video. Blinken and Senator Bob Menendez protest his innocence. Well, they would, wouldn't they, as Mandy said in the Profumo scandal. But I think it's serious. I think, Schumer, Mitch McConnell also protesting his innocence, but also protesting against the basic legality of arresting a journalist doing his job. And we don't know where he was, what he was actually doing. We do know that he's now been formally accused. But it comes down to I think there's a much bigger philosophical question or philosophical point, which is if there's a crackdown on Russian journalists, why would there not be a similar crackdown on international reporters? And I come back to the issue which I raised in the last video. Why would somebody continue to report from Russia when their career and their career puts their life in danger? I think I think again the role of Steve Rosenberg, the BBC reporter, is in peril. He's a great reporter. He's very calm under pressure. And his Russian is excellent, of course. But I think he would be very careful about what he did. I think maybe Evan was not so careful about what he did. He is younger, after all. But I think the idea of him being a journalist, the idea of him being a spy, is frankly absurd. He is so patently a journalist, and a jobbing journalist at that, and a young-ish journalist. And I think he should have been brought back earlier. It is a hostage situation, and it's not a good situation. But at the same time, yeah, Come on, Steve C. What better cover than a spy for a journalist? This sort of sarcasm, it is sarcasm as opposed to irony. It doesn't work well in print. Spies are recruited from their natural environments to give them better cover stories. Yeah. As we all know, all spies have spy credentials with the word spy in red on their ID. Just when you think Tim can't say anything more ridiculous, he surprises us all. Well, I'm only too happy to be the butt of humour. But at the same time, I don't think I suggested that. I think it's perfectly understandable that there will be spies and that spies will be recruited. I just think it's not very likely and frankly absurd that a journalist would be recruited as a spy because a journalist has such an exposed job.